Hey na 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 na, hey na, hey na na, hey na na, hey na, hey na, hey na na na, hey na na, hey na, hey na, hey na na. Hey na na, hey na, hey na, hey na na, hey na na, hey na, hey na, hey na na na, hey na na, hey na, hey na, hey na na. I don't know how my mama walked her trouble down. I don't know how my daddy stood his ground. I don't know how my people survived slavery. But we're standing here today because they believe. This is Jubilee Freedom Day, December 21st, 1864. 62,500 soldiers arrived at City Hall. They call it Sherman's famous March to the Sea. Sherman sent a telegram to Savannah saying we're gonna burn everything down until we get to the sea. He meant Savannah. The only reason they didn't burn our beautiful city is because they had enough sense with Mayor Richard Arnold to surrender. Atlanta didn't surrender. He burned it. Millersville, Macon. But when he came to our beautiful city, he gave us respite. We are the ones that will celebrate this day. Antigone and Savannah, a gift to the city. We are the descendants of those that were enslaved here on the coast of Georgia. According to the 1870 census, it said that 465,000 plus enslaved people were freed on that day in December 21st. And even over in South Carolina, the record shows 637,000. What would my nana say, my grandnana and them? They would say, it's over and freedom is here. And soon, and very soon, we're going to see the king. In homage to those that are buried here in downtown Savannah at this square and the next square and all of these squares within a 3.7 mile acreage around downtown, we pour a libation and we say that we don't know all of the names, but we can pour this libation to celebrate their spirit. And so if you would pour and we call the names of some of our beloved, I'll start out. Princess Shellman, my great-grandmother, born in West Africa and came to Savannah in 1849 and was sold in downtown Savannah. I call her name, call your beloved name, and then we say Ashe. And Ashe means all will be well. Princess Shellman, Ashe. Give me some names. Anyone join any names of beloved. People that are passed on that you are beloved and you think about. Say their names as we pour this water libation.
Call on my great-grandmother, Martha Allison, hailing from Atlanta, Georgia.
I call on the name of Henry Slocum from Virginia, who participated in the drafting of field article number 15. As a descendant stands here, Dr. Amy Fish. She is the daughter of the soil of Henry Slocum. Any more names of the beloveds?
I call on the name of Abraham Joshua Colby, who was one of the original 33 state legislatures, who was elected after Reconstruction. Ashe.
My mother, who is the one who learned about what Henry Slocum did and caused us to do research and to end up here today.
Any more names? Any more names? I call on the name of Susie King Taylor, a free slave that joined the Union forces and became the first African-American nurse in the nation. I say her name, and I claim that this shall be Taylor Square one day. Ashe.
Call on the name of Tunis Campbell, who was another of the original 33 state legislatures who was elected after the war and who was forced out of office and not seated by the state legislature. Ashe.
Last name call? Anyone want to offer the last name?
Call on my grandmother, Barbara Baker, who was a powerful woman who brought much life and love into the world.
And we always save the last pouring of the water so that we can wish well new generations. So we pour this water in honor of new generations. Let them live with truth, reconciliation, healing, and repair. Ashe. Ashe. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Soon and very soon, join we are going to see the King. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah, we're going to see the King. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And as we close, I would close with the song that's dear to many hearts around this community, and it's Oh Freedom. And it's just a little chorus. If you know it, you can join me as we prepare to go see Antigone in Savannah.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me, over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. And the ancestors would say, I hear you talking, child, about all those dates and tenths. 1619, slavery began in the United States and the transatlantic slave trade around the world connected. 1748, slavery began in Georgia. And I hear all those names my Nana would say. I hear the names, I hear the dates. And last time I checked, they're all dead. And so a light bulb goes off in my head, and I get it. There is no more time to study war. We should come down by the riverside and study war no more. So as we close, we'd like you to all join in, and even if you don't know the words, I want y'all to know you are drums, you are percussion instruments. You can use your hand, you can use your feet, and you'll feel your rhythm pick up. Help us sing this song, Down by the Riverside. I'm gonna lay down my burdens, down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Down by the riverside, study war no more. Study war no more. Study war no more.
Good evening. I want to first of all acknowledge our composer and music director, Mr. Phil Woodmore, for all his performance. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Brian Dorries. I'm the artistic director of Theater of War Productions, and we are a social impact company that uses theater as a tool for helping communities address pressing public health and social issues through live performances and dialogue like we're going to have here tonight at First African Baptist Church, historic space, the oldest continuously running black church in America here in Savannah, Georgia, and we are delighted to be surrounded by so many concerned citizens who came out tonight to be part of this conversation and this experience that we're going to have here together, and by thousands of others who are joining us virtually on Zoom from all over the world to be part of this exchange. I just want to acknowledge a couple quick things. I'm going to invite up Sister Pat Gunn, who's going to offer a few words connecting what she did and what her colleagues did in the square, consecrating that space and bringing that energy and that spirit here to us about a mile away. Before I do so, I just want to say that tonight's performance wouldn't have happened without our co-presenters, the On Being Project, and also the Center for Jubilee, Reconciliation, and Healing here in Savannah, Georgia, of which Sister Pat is one of the leaders. And so
Thank you. I want Roz to stand right here. She's on my right and left hand. I want to acknowledge if there are any elected officials, my beloved Mayor Pro Tem, Dr. Estella Shabazz. I thank you for being here. Thank you. Yes. If there are any other elected officials, Sister Alicia Blakely, if you would come. Any other elected officials, if Keisha Blakely, Bonetta Lanier, I want you to know that the chairman, Ellis, wanted to be here, but he's with us in spirit. I think this is such a sacred time, I won't take up any time. I just wanted to say that the march, the procession that we held was for those that are buried in a 3.7-mile radius downtown. Whitfield, Calhoun, I can go on. And they never had a procession. Their graves are unmarked. We got a call from New York. Our pro bono attorney, Max Hess, is here with us. I've been working with Max for over 30 years, and he said, I'm gonna help you. I know some people, and they flew in from New York, and we had dinner with them. We gave them a little Gullah Geechee dinner, you know. And Mark, you were there. I want our coalition member to come. Mark, coalition member, anyone that's here. Our elder is Dr. Pat Stewart. You can stay here, but I just wanted to acknowledge. And so we told them our story. We told them that we are the daughters and sons of those enslaved downtown, and that we wanted to have an opportunity for new generations to heal. And we think that it's something that the nation needs to do. So what I want to share before we begin our play is that I've been blessed to be in a post-civil rights generation in the 20th century. And I saw them do agitation, education, and organizing. And so in this 21st century, we want to add 4 more things to the bucket. We want to add truth-telling, reconciliation, healing, and repair. And so we got this train, and the train has left the station. And we want everybody to get on board because it's time for our beloved city to own their truth and heal. And so Antigone and Savannah is that healing. It was so difficult, leaders, it was so difficult to even go to the square to meet Brian and those, Roz and I, because we just started crying every time. But now we are joyful because we're in commemoration of them. And so we put this wreath together just to say that this is for all those that are buried with unmarked graves in Savannah. We know with our leadership standing here that there's going to come a day when we're going to have that whole area be marked and then say what they are and say their names. And so this red is for the blood, the green is for life and energy, and the white is for the homeless that went home to see their creator. And so we thank the Theater of War. We thank National Public Radio's On Being with Lucas Johnson. And we thank Savannah for coming with open hearts and open minds. What a wonderful Christmas gift. I would like for Mayor Pro Tem to welcome these folk from out of town and tell them that this is a place for them to come. Mayor Pro Tem, Dr. Estella Shabazz.
These songs of freedom. These songs of freedom is all I ever had. Redemption songs. These songs of freedom. My dear sister, and in our daily conversations, we just call each other sister. Thank you so much, sister. Good evening, and it gives me honor to bring you greetings from the city of Savannah, and I am your Mayor Pro Tem, Dr. Estella Shabazz. Our Mayor Van Johnson brings his greetings and welcome the Theater of War's production, Antigone of Savannah, to our beloved city. If there are any of my colleagues, which we are here right now, and I'm so glad that we have Alderwoman Gibson Carter, our Alderwoman at Large Post 1 here. We have, yes. We have our District Alderwoman, Alderwoman Bonetta Lanier here with us. We have our Mayor Pro Tem. Excuse me. Well, you can't speak. I'll get back on the other end. We have our Alderwoman at Large, Post 2, Alicia Miller Blakely with us on today. What an incredible evening this is to celebrate the powers of redemption, reconciliation, and freedom. Redemption, the action of saving or being saved from sin, error, and evil. Reconciliation, to restore, and freedom, the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants to without hesitation. When we come together to empower each other and the future, it is what we are here for tonight. Tonight, we celebrate our resilient future. Yes, we do. Tonight, through this production and many more healing conversations across this nation, we can continue laying the foundation for decades of unity. I would like to also recognize our local participation and cast members who have helped bring this phenomenal creative work to life in our city this week. More specifically, Reverend Tillman and the historic First African Baptist Church. Y'all put your hands together. We are in this space, yes we are, and down below us, I can still feel it every time I come across the threshold of First African Baptist Church, are the spirits of our ancestors. Oh yes, hold me up, my sisters. The spirit of our ancestors who found their way to this place, and I'm here to tell you, to record into the history and herstory, that this place was organized before the United States of America was organized. Where our ancestors, when they found out that they could run to freedom, they ran down to First African Baptist Church. If you have any time in the city, please take the tour. We have our tour master here. Please take the tour, and you will be able to see and feel the handprints and the codes of our ancestors as they are still down in the basement of this church. I would like to thank my sister, Pat Gunn, of the Center of Jubilee, Reconciliation, and Healing, who never sleeps. She never sleeps. She's been going now for 5 decades, and I'm telling y'all the truth about the matter. As well as those who are the generous hearts and minds of theater of war, our leaders. Yes, we thank God for he and our sister who is over here, who was sitting next to him. We thank you all so much for thinking about Savannah and bringing this work here in our city. I will not leave out Robert Gould, who is a local developer and CEO of RG Media Affiliates. Robert, stand to your feet. Y'all put your hands together for Robert Gould. Yeah. Did we have a good time, y'all, this week? Praise God. Praise God. We was hanging out over in the 5th District having a good time while they was getting ready to come here tonight. Praise God. I hope this show ignites a fire within you to make this monumental change happen in our world, in our life. Again, I am your Mayor Pro Tem, Dr. Stella Shabazz, and welcome to Savannah.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem, for that incredibly warm welcome. You're most welcome, Durance. The first time we did one of these events, it was back in 2008. We were performing for Marines who just come back from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and we performed an ancient Greek play about the wars of the Trojan War, and we scheduled a discussion for 45 minutes, and the discussion lasted 3.5 hours and had to be cut off at midnight. So I'm just warning you. This is like a no play in Japan. You can walk in, you can walk out, you can take a nap, you can take a break, you can be yourself, you can dance in the aisles. We invite you to be yourselves and not think of this as a play, but as an exchange and a conversation that we've already started by way of the music and the incredible welcome we've just received. Again, I just want to thank our collaborators here in Savannah and also acknowledge a few others who are here with us tonight, Pat Gunn, obviously, and Sister Roz. And of course, Phil Woodenmore and his incredible choir he brought from St. Louis to collaborate with these amazing singers from Savannah. And just to be clear, this project, Antigone in Savannah, started off as Antigone in Ferguson. And it was premiered on the stage of Normandy High School, from which Michael Brown graduated in 2016. And in the choir, we brought with us tonight some of the members of the original choir, including 2 of Michael Brown's teachers, Durance Blaylock and Dwayne Foster, who are here with us tonight. But we also, thanks to Phil's amazing vision, wanted to build a choir and a chorus that couldn't preach to itself by design. And so we also have folks from law enforcement from St. Louis who've been part of this project, over 150 performances since 2016. We have members of the St. Louis Police Department, John Leggett and Latricia Allen, Captain Allen. And over in the side, we get the Twin Towers. They're twins playing sax and keys. Jamez and Jason. We're so delighted to have them with us. So just to give you that context, and of course, thanks to Robert Gould and thanks to all of our collaborators, Randall Williams, for bringing this incredible choir together and all the people that have come together to be part of this project. I want to thank our designers, Matt Craig, who did the sound, Kent Sprague, who did the lights, and Lapolito, who's our stage manager, and all of the hard-working teams that brought this thing together. And of course, The Office, Lala Productions, and Robert Gould Media. I want to thank Reverend Small for helping us turn out the audience. We knew he could. And the Weeping Time Coalition for their support. And of course, Lucas Johnson from the On Being Project, who introduced us to everybody last summer when we came down here to have dinner at Two Chefs, that fateful dinner with cinnamon rolls that I still dream about and might need an insulin shot still from having eaten. Lastly, I want to thank Marjolaine Goldsmith, who's a Theater of War Productions company manager and producer, for all of her hard work. She'll be acting in the performance as well, and she's going to be coming up any second now to join the other actors on stage. So that's what I want to say. I just want to welcome those who are watching on Zoom. We've had a few technical difficulties getting started, but if you're out there, we hope you'll stick with us. And if you're not out there, we'll release the recording because we got plenty of people here and plenty of people to talk and share their words across the country and the world, even if it's not simultaneous with the experience we're having here tonight in what we call our digital amphitheater. One of the invitations tonight is also to get messy with us. We didn't come here to have a polished performance or a polished conversation, and so that means sometimes just being present with your thoughts and your actions to what you heard. One of the core values of Theater of War Productions is that the audience always knows more than we do. The audience with something at stake has something to teach us. And so we're here to learn from you, Savannah. We're here to hear what you have to say, hear your truths about this ancient story, and we'll share your truths with other audiences as we continue to tour and collaborate across the country and the world. But tonight is for you, and tonight is with you, and this is a collaboration as much with you as an audience as it is with this amazing group behind me. So the structure of the event is really simple. In a few seconds, we're going to start our reading from Sophocles Antigone, and I'm going to introduce quickly our amazing actors that we have with us to perform for you. Marjolaine Goldsmith on the far right, Kara Young, Jesse Eisenberg, Atu Blankson Wood, Rouse, Reverend Small, and Krista Tippett, who will all be performing in just a few seconds. We're going to do this performance, and it'll last about 70 minutes, give or take. And then as soon as it's done, 5 members of your community who bravely agreed to come up and respond from their hearts and their guts to what they heard and saw in the play that resonated with them and spoke to them across time are going to come up and sit up here, and they're going to kick off our conversation with their gut responses, and they're going to share their truths and their interpretations of this ancient story. And then as soon as they're done, I'm going to come back out, and we're going to run some mics into the audience, and we're going to ask you questions, because we want to hear from the audience. And that's the main event, when people stand up and share their truths, and the beauty of what is said always meets the beauty of the play. And we know there's a lot of beauty to be heard out in the audience tonight, and we can't wait to hear from you. So that's the structure of the event. It's very simple. It is an endurance event, so just feel free to relax into it and embrace it and know that it's not a normal cultural offering. It has no rules. There are walls to the room, but we invite you to participate however you feel moved to participate. So I'm going to turn things over to our actors in just a second. Before I do, I just want to say what you need to know about this play, Antigone, written 2,500 years ago by Sophocles and performed in ancient Athens for as many as 17,000 citizens when they saw nearly 80 years of war. This is a play that takes place moments after a civil war has finally come to an end. And the day before this play began, brothers were killing brothers in the streets of archaic Thebes. And 2 brothers killed each other who were fighting for the throne of Thebes, Polynices and Eteocles. They're the children of Oedipus, who 1 generation prior discovered that he was the source of a plague that was killing his people and exiled himself from Thebes. And his children, Antigone and Ismene, are the only 2 left from that family, that cursed family that's been passing a curse down from generation to generation. And so minutes before the play begins, the war has come to an end, and Antigone brings her sister Ismene outside the palace to share with her what she's just heard about the fate of her brother Polynices' body, which has been left exposed to the elements to remain unburied. Without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our actors and our adaptation of Sophocles Antigone.
Since the death of our father, Oedipus, it seems like the gods have set aside only shame and suffering for his survivors. Sister, have you heard?
I'm not sure I can take any more bad news.
I wanted you to hear it from me first. That's why I brought you outside.
You seem really upset. What is it, Antigone?
Creon has declared only one of our brothers worthy of burial. Eteocles will be laid beneath the earth with proper honors, but as for Polynices, Creon has proclaimed that no one may touch his body. He has been left for the birds.
I'm sorry to hear that.
The punishment for anyone who violates this law will be execution by public stoning.
Creon is serious.
So am I.
What do you mean, sister?
It's time for you to show what you're made of, Ismene. Will you honor your family name or reject it?
You lost me there.
Will you help me?
Help you what?
Move the body.
Do you mean bury it? When it has been forbidden by law?
Of course I mean bury it. He was my brother and yours. Where is your loyalty?
Creon is our king now. I'm loyal to him.
Creon may not keep me from my family.
Do you remember how our father died, Antigone? He gouged out his eyes with draft spins before walking blindly into the wilderness. His mother and wife, who was one in the same, hung herself with a twisted noose. And just yesterday, our two brothers brutally murdered one another. If we violate Creon's law, we'll only be added to the list. We are the last in the line of Oedipus. We no longer rule this land. Not to mention we are women, too weak to defend ourselves against men. We must do as we are told. We must perform acts far worse than this. So seeing as I have no choice, I will ask our family's forgiveness and obey those who have authority.
I wouldn't bother asking. You will not receive it. I'll bury him alone if I have to. If love is my crime, I shall plead guilty and pay the penalty with my life. You may stay behind and dishonor your family if you like.
Dishonor them? I don't want to dishonor them. I just don't see the good in disobeying the law.
Then let that be your excuse. I'm gonna bury my brother.
Oh, sister, I'm afraid for you.
Worry about yourself.
Promise me one thing. Let this be our secret. I will not tell a soul.
Oh, say it loud. I shall hate you all the more if you don't.
Then you are resolved to do this thing?
I am.
And what if you don't have the strength?
Then I shall die trying.
Antigone, you fool! You are your father's daughter!
Like an eagle circling o'er our home, searching for prey. 1,000 flaming spheres burst through the sky, aim high at the 7 gates, promising rivers of blood. But Zeus, like a ferocious dragon for war, scorched the torchbearer with lightning and sent him flying back to the earth.
Gentlemen, I have gathered you here on this momentous day to ask for your support. After sending us stormy seas, the gods at long last have granted us still waters. I know that you once respected the authority of King Laius' throne, and that when Oedipus wore the crown, you yielded to him. Since the news of Oedipus' death, you have remained loyal to his descendants. And so it saddens me to report that the line of Oedipus is no more. Patricide has begotten fratricide. Yesterday morning, his two sons killed each other in battle. I am now your king. It is impossible to judge a man's character without first seeing him in action, but I will tell you this, a leader is nothing without his advisors, and I will have the best. A leader is someone who always chooses his country over his friends. Our country is the ship on which we sail. She must remain upright and steady for us to coast safely into harbor. It is with this in mind that I make my first proclamation. Eteocles, who died fighting for this city, shall be buried tomorrow afternoon with full honors. Polynices, who returned from exile to burn our city down, shall rot unburied on stone ground, a 5-course meal for vultures. That is my decree. Death will be the punishment for anyone who violates this law. Guard?
Lord,
Yes. You are out of breath. Why the hurry?
I am out of breath, sir. Not from running, but from fear.
And what makes you so fearful?
First, let me say, I didn't do it, nor did I know who did it.
Yes?
So it wouldn't be fair to punish me for delivering this news.
You're hedging. You must be guilty of something.
Someone else buried the corpse.
What are you saying? What man would do this?
I do not know, sir.
I see.
No footprints, no claw marks, no divots in the ground. There was no sign of the culprit anywhere. And when we finally found the body, it was only lightly covered with dust, not entombed.
Maybe it was the work of the gods.
Do not insult my intelligence. With Zeus as my witness, I now swear this oath. If you do not find and produce the perpetrator of this crime, you will wish for a quick death, but you will never receive it. I will have your extremities removed one by one until you reveal the criminal's name.
May I say something, sir? Or should I just go and turn?
I have spoken. You cannot say anything that will change my mind.
The world is full of many wonders, but none more miraculous than man. He sails across the ocean, he works the land, turning soil to treasure with incredible plan.
With skill and with grace, he tames the beast. He bridles colts and wild bulls to form a glorious feast.
He is master of all speech and has the wit to rule a great city, and will not back down, but band together to vanquish any threat. Oh, he can heal the sick, less than all the pain, even extend life, but death will still remain. but the righteous who are threatened are cast out without pity. He can heal the sick, lessen all the pain, even extend life, but death will still remain. The righteous who upholds nature rise high through the city, but the righteous who are threatened are cast out without pity. He can heal the sick, lessen all the pain, even extend life, but death will still remain. The righteous who upholds nature rise high through the city, but the righteous who are threatened are cast out without pity. Oh, the world is full of many wonders, but none more miraculous than
Okay, where's Creon?
No, this can't be right. Not the daughter of Oedipus. Poor Antigone.
Somebody call Creon. I solved your little problem, or rather, the problem solved itself. The culprit turned himself in.
What is the meaning of all this noise?
Sir, a man should never swear oaths for nothing. It seems as ever certain. I have come, although I swore I wouldn't, to bring you this girl who was caught digging a grave.
This girl, how and where did you find her?
She was burying a man. What more do you need to know?
Do you know what you're saying?
Yes, sir. I saw this girl burying the corpse, which you said must not be buried. Am I making myself clear?
You saw her in the act.
When I returned to the body, your threats still ringing in my ears. I dusted it off carefully, and climbed a nearby hill to keep watch. Soon thereafter, I heard a piercing cry, the shrill note of a bird when it returns to find an empty nest. It was she. Upon seeing the naked corpse, she pounced upon it with fists full of dirt, scratching at the surrounding soil with her fingernails. I rushed down and charged her with the crime. She denied nothing, a response which both relieved me and tortured me at the same time.
You there, bowing your head. Do you admit or deny having done these things?
I say that I did these things and I do not deny it.
You may go. Tell me, and be careful with your words, were you aware of my proclamation forbidding the body to be buried?
Yes, I knew it was a crime.
And you still dared to break the law?
I didn't know your laws were more powerful than divine laws, Creon. Did Zeus make a proclamation too? I wasn't about to break an unwritten rule of the gods on account of one man's whim. Of course, I knew I would someday die. And if that day is today, then I count myself lucky. It is better to die an early death than to live a long life surrounded by evil men. So don't expect me to get upset when you sentence me to death. If I had allowed my own brother to remain unburied, then you might see me grieving. Oh, what's wrong? You seem puzzled. Perhaps you think I've rushed into action without considering the consequences. Well, maybe it is you who has rushed to action. Either way, the question remains, do you have the guts to follow through?
I see you've inherited your father's charm. Citizens, I say that she is a man, and I am not, if she gets away with breaking the law and boasting about her crime. I don't care if she's my niece. She and her sister will both be put to death, for I hold her sister equally responsible for planning this burial. Call her. She's right inside. I just saw her running around the palace in hysterics.
You won't torture me first and make an example of me?
No, I think not.
Then what's taking you so long? I'm sick of listening to your insipid voice. If you're such a man, why don't you just do it? Do it right now. Is it because you know that burying my brother was burying my brother was an honorable act? Huh? These men would all agree with me if they weren't afraid to speak.
You are the only person here who thinks that.
No, they only keep their mouths shut for you.
Why don't you join them?
Because there is nothing shameful in loyalty to a brother.
And what about loyalty to your other brother?
He would have done the same.
Oh, he would have honored his enemy.
It was his brother who died, not a slave.
One died seeking to destroy this city, while the other died defending it.
The dead all have rights.
But what about justice?
Who knows what is just in the world below?
An enemy is never a friend, even in death.
I was not born to hate, but to love.
Then love in the world below. No woman will ever tell me what to do as long as I live.
Here she is, Creon. Here is Ismene. We found her crying tears for her sister inside the palace.
You little snake. All this time you were secretly plotting behind my back. Do you deny it?
As long as she agrees, I accept the blame.
No! No, I will not let you tell him! You tried to stop me. Do not deny it.
But Antigone, I want to go with you.
You had your chance.
Sister, do not refuse me the right to die with you and honor the dead.
You may not share in things in which you played no part. My death is enough.
And what will I do without you?
Ask Creon, he is your king, remember?
Why are you being so cruel to me?
Just save yourself. I won't hold it against you.
I want to die too.
Be brave, sister. It is your turn to live and mine to die.
It seems as though you've both gone insane.
People crack under pressure, Lord.
Indeed. Is that why you chose to aid and abet a criminal?
How could I live my life alone? She's all I've got.
You speak of her as though she's present. She no longer exists.
So you will murder the bride of your own son.
She is not good enough for my son.
Dearest Haman, how your father wrongs you.
Enough! Take them inside and treat them like the criminals they are. Tie them up and wait for my orders.
But for those who suffer by the gods, there is no end to their destruction. It overwhelms their homes like a giant shaking the foundation. It marches like an army against her family. Generation after generation, generation after generation, generation after generation. This house has been cursed from the beginning of time by an inescapable fate. And now the last of the royal line will soon be cut, for destiny's laid is great. There seems to be a law written somewhere in the heavens that mortals may not gain power or wealth without great consequences. The price of fortune is calamity. All brings profit, but it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy we cannot see. On the horizon, evil is good to the arrogant.
but remains alive and rides out the storm. Destiny may be avoided, but cannot be escaped.
Here comes Haman, the last of your sons. Is he here to plead the case of his bride Antigone?
My son, have you come to fight? Have you come to fight your father or prove your loyalty to him?
Father, I am your son. No marriage will take the place of you in my heart.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Haman. You have made me very proud. Let me give you a piece of sound advice. It's something my father once told me, and now I would like to pass it on to you. Never let your feelings for a woman influence an important decision.
Are you kidding? Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Thank you. Women are objects of our desire. We may embrace them. Yes, we may embrace them. We may embrace them, but we shouldn't let them cloud our judgment.
That's right. That's right.
Your fiancée has proven to be an enemy of the state.
No.
Yeah. She was recently caught in an act of open disobedience, and for this, she must die.
Yeah.
I cannot be called a liar on my first day of office. No, this is the kind of scandal that destroys cities. Trust me, I've seen it. But with your help, we will overcome this little setback, proving to the Theban people that we are a family with strong moral values.
Father,
Yep.
the greatest gift that men can receive from the gods is good sense. I cannot fault a thing you just said. It all makes sense. Only you are not in a position, like me, to hear the kinds of things that people are saying in this city. Many of your citizens mourn for this girl, saying that she does not deserve to die for such a noble deed. They view what she did not as a crime, but as an act of heroism. For when her brother lay unburied, she did not leave him to be torn apart by scavenging dogs, but risked her life to put him in the ground.
Yeah.
This is the word on the streets, and I wanted you to know. But for me, I only wish to see you become the greatest king Thebes has ever known. There is no greater joy for a son than to see his father succeed and vice versa. So, I hope you will weigh what I have told you against the things you have just said and change your mind. You are a wise man, but even the wisest of men is not ashamed to learn new things.
You have both spoken well.
Yes, but shall a man of my age be taught by a man of yours?
If I am young, please consider my actions and not my age.
Your action has been to defend a criminal.
Not according to the people of Thebes.
Should the people of Thebes tell me what to do?
See, you sounded like an adolescent just then.
I am the ruler of the city.
There is no city which belongs to one man.
Does the city not belong to its ruler?
You would be better off to rule the desert.
So you have come to fight on the woman's side.
I came here to help you.
By putting me on trial.
By stopping you from making a rash decision.
Traitor! Traitor! All of your words are for her.
And you. And me. And all the gods above and below.
You will never marry her while she lives.
Then she will destroy another with her death.
Are you threatening me?
What's the point in threatening an incompetent king?
You will regret this by Mount Olympus. I swear that you will live to regret insulting your father. Bring that little slut over here so he can see her suffer.
You have completely lost your mind if you think I'll stay here and watch her die. You will never see my face again.
Your son has left in a fit of rage. He's of a sensitive age.
No, let him go. Let him go. He will never save these two girls from death.
Do you really intend to kill them both?
No. No, I don't. I don't. You see, I listen. I learn. I am a just ruler. I do not wish to kill the innocent one.
How do you plan to execute the other?
I shall take her to the edge of town and bury her alive in a shallow cave.
Oh, love invincible, oldest and most powerful, force
in the universe. Almighty, I call out to you. Well, you travel through the forest or the deserts and the ocean, descended into homes of men. No one can resist your grandiose power, for love is a powerful plan. Neither you nor man can resist the power of love. Oh, I feel here at your feet with my head bowed down, begging you not to allow this pain. Please, my dignity, because love has guided her way. Oh, love is good, love makes you mad. Love is fleeting, love is sad. Love is ancient, transcending time. Love is patient, love is kind. Love is good, it makes you mad. Love is fleeting, love is sad. Love is ancient, transcending time. Love is patient, love is kind. Love is good, it makes you mad. Love is fleeting, love is sad. Love is ancient, transcending time. Love is patient, love is kind. Love is good, it makes you mad. Love is fleeting, love is sad. Love is ancient, transcending time. Love is patient, love is kind. Please, I pray to you. Please, I pray to
Citizens of my fatherland, you are seeing me now for the last time. There will be no wedding, no shower. Death will be my bridegroom.
We will honor you like a goddess after you're gone, Antigone.
Do not mock me, gentlemen. Why don't you wait until I'm dead to insult me? Oh, you wealthy men, shame on all of you! Not one of you will do anything to save me, and you dare to say you will worship me.
You have stumbled against the law, Antigone. There is nothing we can do. Perhaps you were meant to pay your father's debt.
Why do you remind me of such painful things? My poor father and my mother's bed, polluted by incest. These are the kind of parents that produce such a wretched daughter as me. And so I go on to join them in their misery, unmarried, alone.
You knew Creon's temper. You did it to yourself.
Stripped of both my family and friends, you lead me to this hole in the earth where you will wall me up and never allow me to see light again.
Take her away. She has said enough. Bury her alive as I have instructed, and let her decide whether she wishes to die quickly or waste away slowly in the darkness. I wash my hands of her life and death.
Tomb, bridal chamber, and prison all in one. That's where I now go to join my family in the world below. I hope they will welcome me. For when my mother and father died, I washed and dressed their bodies and poured libations at their graves. And now, after doing the same for my brother, Panelist, death will be my reward. I know there are still some people who believe I did the right thing. But what divine law did I transgress? If the gods think this is right, then I defer to their judgment. But if these people are doing wrong in the eyes of the gods, then may they experience nothing less than what they unjustly do to me. City of Thebes! Land of my ancestors! I am being led away to my death without delay. Citizens, rulers of this country, witness my unjust suffering at the hands of these men for showing reverence for what is right and what is sacred.
People of Thebes, we have come on a shared path, two seeing with the eyes of one. For this is the way the blind must walk, with the help of a guide.
And what is your news, Tiresias?
I will tell you if you promise to obey an old prophet.
I have never neglected your advice in the past.
That is why you've always steered the city on a straight course.
I can testify from experience to the help that you give.
This time is no different. You are standing on the razor's edge.
What do you mean, old man?
Listen and learn. As I sat down in the ancient seat of augury, I heard shrieking birds. In a frenzy, I listened more closely and realized that they were tearing each other to pieces with sharp talons. At once, I made burnt offerings to all the gods, but wet slime oozed from the thigh bones of these animals, and their entrails exploded in all directions. Make no mistake, Creon, it is you who bears responsibility for this evil omen. For our altars have all been defiled by birds with carrion from the son of Oedipus, who still lies rotting above the earth. And so the gods no longer accept sacrifices from us. For these animals have all consumed of a dead man's blood. Consider this, Creon, before you respond. Everyone screws up, especially kings. But when someone screws up, it is important that he fix what he has broken. Stubbornness is just another sign of stupidity. Where is the power in re-killing the dead?
Yes, sir.
You must bury the son of Oedipus and atone for your error.
We have known each other for a long time, Tiresias, but I never thought it would come to this. Go ahead. No, make money by attacking me if you want to. But know this, you will never put that body in the ground. Even if Zeus's eagles should lift it up and carry it to a grave, I would not allow it to be buried. For I know that no man has the power to pollute the gods.
Does any man know? Does any man consider?
Consider what? What pithy aphorism do you have for us now?
Are you calling me a false prophet?
All prophets love money.
Then all kings love dishonest gain.
Do you know that the man you are slandering is your ruler?
I know that it's because of me that you saved this city and now rule it.
You may be a skillful seer, but you are fond of doing wrong with your gift.
You will drive me to reveal terrible secrets.
Really? And how much is that going to cost?
Corpse for corpse. Son for son. In a matter of hours, you will have sacrificed your offspring on the altar of your own arrogance. See if in a few hours you will still think that I have said this for money. Boy, take me home.
Yes, sir.
He is gone, but his dreadful prophecy still lingers. In all my years, I have never heard him utter a word that wasn't true.
No, I know this too, and it troubles me deeply. It is not easy for a king to admit when he is wrong, but I cannot live with the guilt of what he has predicted.
You were wise to say this, Creon.
Wait, so what should I do?
Release the girl from the tomb and bury the body.
That's right.
Is that really your advice? You think I should just go back on my word?
Yes, Lord, as quickly as possible before it's too late.
Yes.
Oh, I will obey.
Go then and do these things yourself. Do not entrust them to others.
No, I shall go and release her myself. Servants, follow me with picks and shovels. We must hurry and hope that in our swiftness we appease the god's anger.
The people of Thebes call out to you.
Throwing back our heads and raising our voices. Antigone will be wed. Come to us now, appearing, or fix upon that fast, and cure our land of sickness. Deliver us from the violence.
Purify the city. Wash away the falling. Purify the city. Bring justice to our land. Purify.
we all remember a time when Creon was once inevitable. He saved this land from enemies. He ascended from our king, and he was the father of many children. But now he has lost everything.
What is this message you have come to deliver?
Some are dead, others live. The survivors' hands are stained with blood.
Who is the killer in the corpse?
He killed himself, but was angry with his father.
The prophet's words have come true. Look, I see Eurydice, Creon's wife, and she's coming from the house.
Gentlemen, I was on my way to the Temple of Athena with gifts and supplications. When I overheard you, I caught some of what you said, but not all. Please, tell me everything you know, and do not hold back because I am a woman.
Dear mistress, I accompanied your husband in the search for Polyneices. When we found it, we prayed to Pluto, god of the dead. Then we tended to the body, washing it hand, dressing it, burning it with fresh branches. Finally, we built a burial mound and laid Polyneices to rest. Next, we sprinted for the outskirts of town. From a distance, one of us heard the shrill sounds of wailing. And when we got closer, Creon heard, too, all of a sudden cried, "Now I am a prophet, for I know that voice all too well. He is my son." And so we pulled away the rocks. And in the depths of the cave, we saw Antigone hanging from a noose, and your son clinging to her waist and sobbing. Creon, seeing his body inside the cave, called out to him, "Son, what are you doing? Come out, I beg you." But the boy glared at his father with murderous eyes, spit on the ground, and withdrew his sword. Creon barely escaped with his life. Then Haman looked sadly upon his bride, laying her body gently upon the cavern floor, and then fell upon his sword, plunging his sharp blade deep into his side. He held on to his lover with feeble hands, coughing up blood which stained her cheeks. And there they lie, corpse upon corpse, a marriage of sorts, deep in the house of Hades.
What do you suppose this means? She ran inside without saying a word.
I am surprised. I hope it was because she did not think proper to mourn in public.
I don't know. Silence can be as ominous as wailing.
You know, you are right. There's something strange about her reaction. I'll go inside and check on her.
Here comes the king himself, carrying his son's body.
My son! My son! It's all my fault. My fault! I am to blame for your death.
It seems you have learned too late.
I have learned nothing but misery. Oh, it is terrible to be a man.
Sir, your troubles have only just begun. Something worse awaits in the palace.
What could be worse than
your wife is dead?
You have killed me twice, messenger, with your words. Death upon death surrounds me.
See for yourself, sir.
What next? I have just held my son's dead body, and now
She impaled herself upon a sharp sword, sticking it deep inside her belly, charging you with murder of her son.
Oh, why hasn't someone just cut me open stabbed me in the heart to ease my pain. It was I killed her. I am a monster. Servants, lead me out of the city. I must never look upon another man again.
Those are wise words, Creon.
Oh, lead me out of sight, please. I am a foolish man. There is blood on my hands. I killed my wife and child. I am crushed. I have been crushed by fate.
Wisdom is the greatest gift to mortals. The grand words of proud men are punished with great blows.
round of applause for our composer and music director, Mr. Phil Woodmore, Dr. Phil Woodmore. I want to acknowledge our musicians, Jason and Jamez Davis, the Twin Towers on the keys and sax. Terrence Williams on the guitar. Kenneth Crawford on the drums. Warren Bernard Daniels II on the bass. And Mr. Randall Williams on the piano. Thank you all so much. The first time we did this, we thought, can we have a rational conversation after this is all said and done? But it turns out that once you're open, you're open. And so we're going to take this opening that we've made and we're going to make the most of it for the next hour or so. And I promise we won't go all night, although we could. And we had some technical difficulties, and there was an amazing thing that happened. At least we had the Zoom cut out a couple times, but we have hundreds of people who waited and are still watching out there in the world who want to be part of this conversation. We'll, of course, release the recording later, but some of those intrepid folks out there, I want to thank you for your patience and for staying with us here in Savannah and being part of this conversation. Maybe some of you will raise your hands out in the world and still get into this conversation with us tonight. We're going to transition now to our discussion. I want to invite our 5 panelists to come up and take their seats in these directors' seats up front. And as the panelists are coming up, I just want to plant the first seed of the first question I'm going to ask you as an audience as soon as they're done with their brief opening remarks. And I just want to quickly also introduce Theater of War Productions Community Liaison, Dominic DuPont. Dominic. Dominic's many, many things, but he's also an incredible mic runner, and he'll come to you when you raise your hand in a matter of milliseconds, because there's nothing worse than a sauntering mic runner, and especially when we have so much to get through in the time that we're going to be together. But here's the first question we're going to ask you. We want you to think about it, you in the audience, you in the world who are watching, and then as soon as these amazing individuals from Savannah respond, we're going to come back out to you with the question again. So this play, Antigone, was written 2,500 years ago and performed in Athens in a century in which they saw nearly 80 years of war, and in which a plague, now thought to be typhoid fever, killed at least 1/3 of the Athenian population. And like us, the people who watched that play 2,500 years ago, they've lost a lot of lives. And we're here to mourn the dead from the 17th and 18th century, but we're also here to mourn the dead of the last 3 years and acknowledge that we have lost quite a few of our own, not just to war, but to pestilence. And so we're here to have that conversation too. But just before we get going with our panelists, here's the question I want you to think about. It's a question we've asked over 150 other audiences with this project all over the country and the world. Now that you've seen these actors and this amazing choir and Phil Woodmore and his singers from St. Louis and our Savannah singers going for broke, and you know this play was written 2,500 years ago and performed for as many as 17,000 people sitting shoulder to shoulder like we are tonight, according to their community, watching and acknowledging the play together. What spoke to you across time? What touched you tonight as you watched this performance? What resonated with you? What was true? We're going to return to that question in a few minutes, but before we do, I want to go over to our panelists and ask them, they're going to introduce themselves and then launch directly into their comments. Dr. Pat, do you mind going first?
Good evening. That's very formal and more formal than I feel. I've been in Savannah. I don't want to say much about where I've been. I've been in Savannah about 29 years. I came here, 24 years. I came here when I'd retired for the 3rd time, and I got a new birth card, my Medicare card. And being a part of this, and since then, I have found the South in me. It was not anywhere in any document that I could find that could give me a place to know I be born, I be loved, I be sorrowed, I be scared. None. The silence in my family in their migration was unbelievable. And I found it because I went to the Family Research Center, and they started finding my family in Macon, Georgia, from a plantation. They found another part who had been enslaved in Mobile. And just recently, a woman found me and asked me about a family name, and she said, if you're part of them, you're in good stead. Another black woman, and it was about a white man in Alabama that had owned a plantation where my aunt's husband's great-great-grandfather was the owner. And I live on a small, small cove in far South Savannah, that all of that area, if you know it, off of Grove Point Road, was a rice plantation. And I didn't know a thing about tide. I didn't know a thing about crabs coming up on it. I didn't know about shrimp. I didn't know anything. I was real lost. What I did find was the good food, because I knew that, because they brought that with them, and they surely gave us that. But I was looking out at asked if the tide had come in, and the man looked at me. I was asking this man, it was a white man. I said, is the tide in or out? And they said, well, it's been damaged, so the water in that's a little forest river, and then the little Ogeechee, and they have damaged that area so much in the way they have damaged the marsh. And so he further said to me, this is where the stables used to be on the plantation. 2 houses from me, he's talking about the stables were there. Well, you know what I went to? My people were here, because we didn't get much further away from the stables. My sense and soul felt my grandmother's words, because I was living on that ground where the stables were. And since then, so many things have come up that have connected me to the people here. But the thing that connects me is from what this music was tonight. Oliver Sacks, who's a well-known psychiatrist, whatever, but he did say, they say, one thing he said was just so profound, that in order to heal, we must be musicked. M-U-S-I-C-K-E-D. Were you musicked tonight? And the other thing about me, I've never shirked a denomination. I started out with my father taking me and my grandmother and my sister to a little tiny church it was a rousing church where people were dancing in the aisles, because if we'd been in that kind of, if people here, since this was so moving, but we would have been dancing in the aisles. And it was a little tiny church, and my father used to pick us up. But the church was lit by oil lamps. And so my father picked us up one night, and he called my grandmother Aunt Missy. You know the thing that when you come off the plantation, you call Aunt, and so she was Aunt Missy to the whole town. And he said, Aunt Missy, you can't keep bringing my daughters here. They jump up and down when those oil lamps will fall off there, and you're gone. And I moved through church life like that. I went to church as a child with James Lawson's father being the pastor, and knew every one of the Lawsons' 9 kids. So I want to talk about how church created community. It allowed me to know how to walk around. And I've come to Savannah and taken that stride and said, I got to have a new road. I got to make a road that I can walk, that I didn't walk in the north because it was blocked. It was blocked because we didn't talk about segregation, but it was there. It was blocked because I couldn't go in the tea room, but my mother said, well, we'll be okay because we'll go next door to Isley's and we'll get better flavors. So when you've got to know and realize how much silence and how much invisibility is blocking you right now. And that's what I've done here, is to get some new eyes. But more than that, the ears. Your ears you have to see, hear, and see me in what I say. I am in the midst of my 10th decade. And I didn't know I'd be able to talk, and I was so taken. And my daughter's sister, Beverly, who is dear, dear to me, and is a warrior. She's a warrior woman. I was just broken. I mean, it just broke me down, and it was like all I could hear was a humming and just the sounds of the music. And then you come to the point where just now, as we said, we've got to make a new stride to get into the next phase of this. Here's the question I have for you. That rousing, rousing music given by so many talented people, but the daughter, sister, friend who sang it, and I hope you watch the bodies, because embodied messaging will give you the light. And I hope you watched her body, the energy and the anguish. She is a policewoman. And she brought God to the table, and the Lord, we had communion. So I want to say as I close right now, how did you get covered? How did you get covered? And how are you wrapping it around you to leave here?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Pat. Joanne, thank you so much.
She's so cool, too. There's so many cool people in Savannah. My name is Joanne Morton, and I'm a positive energy artist. And I call myself a Midwestern New Yorker living in the South with a West Coast vibe. And I never thought I'd ever live in Savannah or in the South. You know, I lived in big cities, and then I moved here 12 years ago. And I will always be forever grateful that Spirit guided me here, because I have an opportunity to understand the lies that were told to us Northerners, Midwesterners growing up, and to understand my role in stopping the lies. And this play, this whole experience was a trip, because the music was one thing, but I'm not going to talk about that, because the music was so moving. But the play really, 2,500 years ago, they talked about, I wrote this down, the divine law and love. Love is the reason we do things. And that whole song that they sang, love is pain, love is healing, love is, I don't know all the lyrics, but it was just, it just resonates with me that that is the reason we're here. We're here to love. And I want to, Pat Gunn, when I met her, and she was telling me about the Center for Jubilation and Reconciliation and Healing and slavery. And I asked her, I go, how can you put the word healing and slavery in the same sentence? That's a lot. That's a lot, because for me, coming down here, if you walk around the squares, and if you walk, one of the places I go to, Wormslow, it's this huge plantation place down there, and when I'm on it, I just feel all the people that live there and work there and died there. And there's so much healing to be done. And that's when I asked Pat, how can you bring healing and slavery together? And how do you do that? And she said, it's hope. Hope that there's a difference, hope that people do love, hope that it's possible. And if you don't have hope, why take the action? So, and I think going back to the churches and the songs are what brings you hope. And then the other lyric of one song, there are many wonders in the world, but the most miraculous wonder is man and woman. But we are the miracles of this planet, you know, and it's because we have the opportunity to love. And even 2,500 years ago, the government, the people more in power, were making just stupid laws and stupid declarations and not wanting to admit when they're wrong. It's like, when are we going to wake up and stop recognizing it's okay to make a mistake? You know, we're all human. And if we can just let go of that ego and recognize that, you know, We're just humans trying to do the best we can, and it'd be so much more fun and enjoyable if you just get over yourselves and love. So I'm glad that love is the message still today.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I really appreciate being second. Thank you. Mark, over to you.
Hi, my name is Mark Henley. I am a very proud member of the coalition that has successfully unnamed Calhoun Square. I see some of my colleagues in spirit, members of our city council, brave men and women who took it upon themselves to change 171 years of history. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm probably the newbie up here. I've been here for about 4 years. In my previous life, I was a psychology professor in the Philadelphia suburbs. But before I talk about the play, I want to talk about something else that I observed. And this is a reflection on the people behind me and on either side. And that is the artistic director, Brian over here. I wasn't going to say this, but he had this shit-eating grin on his face almost the whole time. You know you did right. So anyway, one of the things that struck me, the music was fabulous, of course, but something that Sister Pat, my friend, Sister Pat, mentioned at the very beginning was remembering people by their names. I lead tours at Congregation Mikveh Israel, the historic synagogue here in town. And I tell the story of a man named Samuel Nunez, who was born Diogo Ribeiro Nunez. And he and his wife, when they escaped the Inquisition from Portugal, they changed their names. They wanted to have names that were Jewish, that they could state publicly. Remembering names count. They help, they are a central part of our identity. To remember names means remembering spirit, remembering the gifts that were shared with us. A line that caught me from the very beginning was when Ismene mentioned that women are too weak to defend themselves against men. And I found myself thinking, oh, that resonates. Harvey Weinstein was guilty of rape. It almost seems as though the wheel keeps on repeating itself again and again and again. The love is expressed oftentimes in respect. Respect for the individuality, respect for the personhood of the other. Maybe that's how we will get to a point where we don't necessarily have to feel that any of us, male, female, whatever, along that whole spectrum, where we have to defend ourselves against those in power. I also felt a little sorry for Creon. He was a rather pitiable fellow. He was trapped. He entrapped himself by his rigid adherence to the rules. And he couldn't extricate himself until it was too late. That's the nature of tragedy. When we see it unfolding, it's even more tragic and we know where it's going to lead. Thank you, Brian, for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for being third. I thought no one could see me smiling ear to ear over here, so but I was incredibly proud of everyone who was part of this production tonight, and so honored to be part of it with you all too. Beverly, over to you.
My name is Beverly Capers Trotter, and right now I'm still filled with the Holy Ghost or some kind of, or whatever happened tonight. It happened. It is our responsibility up here to invoke a conversation, to talk about what did happen. as I look at the young lady and I think about 2022, I think about there's a gray area in state laws. These laws run the world. But when you think about what happened tonight, can you just imagine? Those kind of things happen all the time. There's people who are hurting, but they're obeying the law. And there's people who are over the law, who are mistreating people, who are not, they're abusing power. What I saw tonight in that play, through the crying, when I did stop crying, when I did stop shouting, when I did stop singing, I realized that I could relate this thing in so many ways as it relates to 2022. I'm thinking about, what about our young people? Young people every day have to deal with people who are in control of their lives and their families' lives because of where they live, because of where they go to school, because of who they are. They have to deal with that. And then we have to deal with that. I mean, I don't want to bring the color thing up, but if we're having a true conversation, we have to talk about true stuff. And the reality of it is that we deal with things like that all the time. We have to make a decision. We have to make these conscious decisions on what's good for us, what's morally right, and what's right for the state, what's right for the city, what's right for my children, what's right for my mom, what's right for my brother. Those things we have to think about, but yet we do have to have a conversation about it. We have got to not be afraid to talk about those things that hurt, and those things that don't feel good, and those things that are hindering us and our children from being successful. And sometimes there's a gray area in man-made laws. It's a gray area. And I'm interested, I'm not gonna take a lot of time talking about me because I wanna get right to it. So Claire, how long are you gonna take?
Nice handoff, Beverly. I appreciate that. But I want to thank Beverly for her comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Clay.
Thank you, Miss Beverly, for the beautiful alley-oop you just gave me. My name is Clay Hodges. I'm a lot of things, but tonight I'm an artist, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a co-founder of Be Good to You Foundation here in Savannah. We encourage the community to be good to themselves through our outreach programs, and it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to speak. First of all, that music, Lord have mercy. Y'all did y'all thing. And it's even better that some of the people in the choir and playing over there are some of my friends that I know, so it's like really cool. Like, I was really moved. It made me think about my childhood growing up in the church. My mom's a pianist, and it was a point in time I closed my eyes and it just took me back, and it did some real healing to my soul just then. My inner child was just so happy. But also, the play was remarkable. I resonated with it deeply. A lot of times when they were talking about the people of Thieves, I felt like they were talking to us. Like, we were the people of Thieves. And I felt like our opinions and what we thought and felt mattered. It was really interactive in that way, and I appreciated it. It also reminded me of Hercules. Y'all remember the cartoon Hercules with the same? Yeah, it did, but it was pretty cool. But one thing that really stuck out to me, just to piggyback on what Ms. Beverly was talking about, the conflict between civil law and divine law. And I want to say something with y'all. There's a big difference between being right and being righteous. And that was the overall theme for me. And I think for me, was the biggest takeaway that I'm taking, and I'm applying it to my life moving forward. There's a difference between being right and righteous. And I choose to be righteous. I do my best to be righteous. I fall short a lot of times. But that's the goal. And I appreciate you guys for putting this together. Thank you for doing it here in Savannah. Thank you for allowing us a space before everything started to kind of share some of my culture with Sister Pat. Thank you for allowing me to be here. And I'm honored. I'm honored to continue this conversation with you guys as well. And thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Clay. I want to thank our panelists with a huge round of applause for getting us started. Thank you all so much. It's no small thing to get up in front of a community and make such personal connections right after all that. And it's showing us a way forward of being open and vulnerable and present in ways that I know the audience is going to follow your lead. Thank you for your candor and your courage. Thank you for getting us started. As I mentioned before, I'm going to turn my back to you, but now I just respect. And at any point during the conversation, you can come back like the voice of God through your microphones into the conversation and join us again. But we want to hear from the audience that's out there, both here in the room and also out in Zoom. And I'm just going to restate the question. And Dominic, again, the fastest mic runner on the East Coast, and we have another mic runner back there as well, another one there. Oh my goodness. Now that you've heard these panelists making sense of the play and interpreting it for themselves right now in this space, this incredible church here in Savannah, Georgia, and you have had time to reflect, in spite of the distance of culture and time, in spite of everything that separates us from the Greeks who wrote and received this play thousands of years ago, what spoke to you tonight in the performance? What touched you? What resonated with you? What was true? Now, in every audience, there's always one extremely kind person. I knew it was you over there. Thank you so much for being the first. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I came here with my husband to see Krista Tippett, and then we stepped into this. I had no idea what was going to happen, and I experienced this play as a white 34-year-old Ukrainian. And what it really showed me that we all suffer. While we are all sufferers in some way, we're also healers and hope givers. The power lies in the we, in the community. And what is worse than suffering? Well, it's suffering alone. And we are not alone. My family in Ukraine, they're not alone. I mean, you've seen those people. The resiliency of this community in Savannah and the resiliency of my people in Ukraine and the resiliency of the Black community that I've witnessed in the United States. It's just a witness to how incredible humankind is, and we can continue to grow and learn and be better and fail again. And if that happens, be more compassionate, as this is an opportunity for compassion for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Dominic, I see a hand over here, right there. I'm so delighted that one of the first people to speak in the audience brings Ukraine into the room. We have the project we just did before this one is our project on Ukraine and with Ukrainian chorus. So a chorus tonight of Savannah's, but then a Ukrainian chorus for our recent project, the Suppliants. And what connects Ukraine to this conversation, aside from the things you said, is that the people in the play, in the actual play, in Thebes, and the people in Ferguson also, and the people in Savannah and the people in Ukraine all know that the thin fabric of peace hangs in the balance of what happens next. And of course, Ukraine doesn't have peace yet, but that fabric is thin and the stakes are high. And everyone here is brought to a sort of consciousness of that by the play. And then that consciousness is heightened when someone from Ukraine speaks and shares in the way you did. So I really appreciate you. Ma'am, thank you so much. Over to you.
Good evening. I think what was profound to me more in this play was Antigone and Berenice's dialogue prior to going and having the audacity to bury her brother, right? And then even though her sister said, don't go, she yet went. And then when she was thrown to the wolves and accused of the crime that she had indeed committed, her sister said, well, let me die with you. And so this is what I would say to even us Savannians that are here tonight and have experienced this, that Miss Pat and what she's doing for the square, for our city, to bring healing and reconciliation in our city. I'm gonna tell you that she's been thrown to the wolves many times, and she sacrificed herself and her family and her well-being to support this city. I'm gonna ask you and encourage you, as the sister did here, to grab hold with Miss Pat and the vision and the dream and the goal, right? And die with her if you must die. But if we gather together, then we'll live.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Is there a hand behind me? You're pointing to a hand. Oh, I see a hand. I got her. The two things that we know things are going well. One is when someone sympathizes with Creon. Then you know that we're getting some kind of complexity in the conversation. Although Jesse did a great job tonight, I want to thank Jesse for his performance. And then when someone talks about the gray area and acknowledges the ambiguity and the sort of moral gray area we all kind of live in all the time. And then when the choir starts to speak, then we're getting somewhere really great. So DeAndrea, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Over to you.
Brian knows I always got something to say. So I have had the privilege of performing this ever since it premiered in 2016. And every time we perform it, something always strikes me differently. And today, because of this current context, what stood out to me was the idea of ancestry, the idea of inheritance. And I was thinking about this random fact of research that black baby girls, those who are descendants of those who survived the slave trade, their lungs are more developed than those of other cultures. And this is something in research that you can find. Thinking about how my voice, my breath, is a gift of those who survived, right? But I'm also thinking about just how trauma is passed down. Healing can be passed down as well. And it's important that we acknowledge that trauma, that we work with it, that we don't push it aside, but we really take the spirit of Sankofa and that we look at our past, we honor our past, and we honor our ancestors. We continue to say their names, and we carry them with us as we move forward, as we pass down healing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DeAndrea. DeAndrea is often one of our co-facilitators, and I just love that you immediately pose something that becomes the perfect segue to the second question, because we're always working in tandem and almost can read each other's minds, so I'm so delighted that she did that. I'm going to ask a couple questions. You can always ignore them and ask your own question. You can assimilate all your answers into one perfect statement. We really don't care. I just want to move us in a couple of different themes. They're all kind of variations of the same question. But this thing you brought up about healing, and I love the idea that trauma can be passed down. I don't love that idea, but I like the idea that healing can be passed down too. And someone brought up wounded healers, which is a concept Joseph Campbell talks about, the idea that with wounds come the power to heal. And that's such a powerful thing, because and then the idea that voices that are born out of intergenerational trauma can then heal us when we hear them in this space singing to us tonight, that it can have a direct impact, that the breath can heal. Of those who had resilience and survived. Well, the play and also Greek tragedy are stories about intergenerational trauma being passed down, the curse that's passed down within a family over generations. And of course, in the play, there's a line, "This house has been cursed from the beginning of time by inescapable fate." And sometimes when we hear that line, I think that's the United States of America. You know, our house has been cursed from sins and from things that people we didn't know long before us committed, but we're living with their consequences, and it's being passed down in our bodies and in our communities for generations, from not just slavery, but of course our treatment of the indigenous population of this country, and the Trail of Tears not having started. It's not so far from here, and John Calhoun, whose name was removed from the square, being one of the collaborators and the architects in that part of our history and curse that's been passed down. But I want to just ask you about intergenerational curses. And in the play, and in one of the songs, Durance sings, and Durance, by the way, she's not a police officer, she was Michael Brown's teacher, but she's there are a lot of police officers in the performance who were singing, and there's an incredible connection between all of them. So I was touched when that statement was made. I just want to acknowledge it. But Durant's, she sings generation after generation after generation after generation after generation. So if Greek tragedies are about watching curses being passed down from generation to generation, the curse of Oedipus being passed down to his children, and then now society is collapsing and it's being passed down to the next generation, then we're talking about historical wounds like the wounds of Calhoun, or the unnamed square that used to be Calhoun Square. And the question I have is, what does healing historical wounds look like? How do we heal these historical wounds that we're watching, this intergenerational trauma? DeAndrea put something forward and Durant did in her voice, but I bet other people in this room have something to say about that. And of course, again, you can ignore my question, but Reverend Small raised his hand, and I cannot deny Reverend Small when he raises his hand, so over to you.
The lesson for me came from maybe an obscure place. It was that the son gave his father some advice that said simply, you should listen to the people. None of this proceeds if they had spoken when she was asking. None of this happens. Nobody dies. If the men that she said were weak and scared had spoken. We just came through 4 years of a president before us where people were scared to speak. In the land of the free, home of the brave, with a right to free speech, we shut up. I made up my mind as a child that I would never be silenced. If I die, let me die, because I'm going to see a king.
Thank you so much. We don't have to think about healing intergenerational wounds because the tragedy doesn't unfold if people just put their bodies in front of Antigone when the time comes to do so, and when they speak out when it's time to do so. Greek tragedy is about watching people learn too late, usually milliseconds too late, and then they destroy their families and generations to come. But I'm listening to you and thinking, it's not just Creon who learns too late. The people also learn too late. Sister Pat raised her hand, and I can't deny Sister Pat. Also, I want to acknowledge that there's some people out there in the audience, in the Zoom world, who, they're raising their hands, and just accept our invitation to be promoted to the screen, and we will bring you into this room. I think you probably need just a little encouragement, because this room feels so insular, like we're the only people having this experience in the world, but you're welcome to be part of this experience as well out there in the world. Sister Pat, over to you. We have a few people now joining us in our Zoom community, our global community, but we're going to go to Sister Pat first, and maybe we'll take a few people out in the world and connect this across borders and boundaries all over the planet. Sister Pat.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, in terms of how do you heal from generational pain, is I think the number one thing you have to do is the acknowledgement that the offense has happened. We were at the Fife Plantation this weekend. It's 15 minutes over the Talmadge Bridge, and my beloved friend Eleanor Harrison, please stand. Please stand. I want people to see her. She is my sister friend, and she is a descendant of the slave owners of that plantation. And we got together, descendants of slave owners and descendants of slaves. And we went to the land and we paid homage to the 600 plus graves there. So I would say if you really want to talk about healing, you do the acknowledgement first, and then you go into the rest of the work. How, they asked me. is it, Sister Joanne, that a descendant of a slave owner can be friends with a descendant of slaves is because we both acknowledge it happened, and then we begin to do some work. Listen, the last thing I want to share is beloved. They're probably already gone, but some of the members of our coalition lived around the square, and they were brave, and they acknowledged they are under this building, this church, this home, your ancestors, and we want to help. And so I think acknowledgement, and I want to give some new words to new generations like Brother Clay over here and others. I challenge you to become 21st century abolitionist hearts and do some work. Acknowledgement.
I see a hand. Well, we're going to go right there, and then let's go over there, and then after we go there, I believe we're going to go to Willie, although we just lost the screen, but maybe we'll get the screen back up, and we'll go to Willie. Please.
Thank you. I was thinking about standing, Sister Pat, and my heart was beating. And I want to speak to fear. I want to speak the person in the play that the moment where I really felt was Antigone's sister, and that moment where she's so afraid, and she won't go to the burial and help with the burial. And I was thinking how I can identify with that. And I just want to say, even standing here right now in my hometown, but we can feel the fear. I'm going to speak to the people that have benefited from the legacy of slavery, and whether you have enslaved ancestors or you came here 40 years ago, but you still benefit from it. It's time to hold the fear. We can do it. I can tell you because I've been really afraid over the last week leading up to this thing. I didn't, but we can do it. We can really do it. We can hold the fear. It's nothing compared to what the trauma is that's come before. And the acknowledgement and the apology and the repair, I just want to say that here's what happens when you go there. Sister Reverend Naomi said it. She said, you might experience a soul death, but then you're going to experience a soul resurrection. And I just want to be a witness myself to when you can feel it and you can go with it and then you can take the steps. And we're not that far along. I don't want to say we've done all this. We're taking one little tiny step at a time. But when that happens, it's I got my sight back. I got my heart back. I got more whole, when I allowed myself to feel the things that I was not socialized to feel and see the things that I wasn't socialized to see. I drove past that knoll where the burial area is my entire life, 500 times, I don't know, and I did not see it. I did not feel it. I did not think about it until some things happened. So I just want to say we can do this, and when you do, it is so healing. It is so healing for us, all of us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Right behind you. Right behind you. So I love this answer to the question that Pat puts forward, Sister Pat puts forward, and then there's a reciprocity between it too. And in the dialogue that's starting to happen in the room, the people whose ancestors were slaves, standing with people whose ancestors were slave owners and also plantation owners, and acknowledging the truth of it is part of how healing happens. But I also love what you said about how there's a reciprocity between processing and getting past fear, and that also helps people process and get past trauma, and that there's a connection between that too. There's a line in the play, fear begets fear if left unchecked. And I feel like that endless cycle of violence is born out of fear, and fear is a kind of sickness too. It's something that infects us, and so I appreciate you acknowledging all that. We're gonna actually try this. Who knows? We're still just crawling up into the 21st century, and out of necessity, we went to Zoom during the pandemic, and our first event, we had 15,000 people from 42 countries, and all of a sudden, the thing just opened wide. And even if it's not working perfectly tonight, I still think it's just a wonder that we can connect this way across borders and boundaries. And so, Willie, I know your name probably isn't Willie. Maybe it is, but on your screen it says Willie. So we're going to go to you next, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and speaking your truth and sharing your interpretation. Over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So I am so glad to be able to speak this evening. I participated last Wednesday when many healthcare staff were involved, but last time the video wasn't available to us, so I didn't see the play. And tonight, I didn't get a chance to see the play. I only just read the cliff notes. So I have that idea in my head. But what I wanted to speak to this evening, to add to the conversation, is the concept of those who are protected and those who are bound. And this, read this in Byron Wood's book named Inheritance. It's an excellent, excellent book. I highly recommend it. And what it's talking about is the idea that the laws, whether it was the laws during enslavement, the laws during Jim Crow, or the laws in the 21st century, the laws are set up to protect some people, and it works very well. Other people, it's meant to bind them. It bounds us. And I'm a nurse, and in the healthcare system, especially the healthcare institutions, the hospitals, there are books on every unit that are the policy and procedure books. So that if you were going to do something, you check the policy and procedure books and you'll know how to do it in accordance with the way that the hospital wants you to do it. And I'm raising that under those who are protected because those books protect the institution and the highest levels in the institution, but they bind the other people who work in the institution, like nurses, like housekeeping, dietary staff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It binds them. So if you fall outside of those rules and regulations, then you get dinged. And that is to protect the institution and the upper management. And I'm saying this to say that the same thing is applying when it comes to the laws of the land. We saw that with the whole Floyd situation. Some are bound and others are protected. And we see some of the times a little bit of breakthrough through the protections, but speak about our past president, protected and not necessarily bound by the rule of law. I just wanted to bring that concept into the conversation.
Thank you.
And I'm so pleased that you're willing to listen.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us and being part of the conversation. Thank you. You know, we have a hand in the back. We'll come back to Zoom in just 1 second, but let's go back here and we'll share the energy and move it back and forth. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so very much. The name is Al Jackson, and I first must say how excited I am to be in this historic church and to understand the significance of what it means and the different lives that have been touched here and the history inside of these walls. I really enjoyed the play this evening and was really thinking about how we become bound in our own thoughts and the difficulty of getting outside of those whether we know the truth or not, and what custom represents. I'm also thinking about trauma and what trauma does in terms of toxic stress in brain development over time. And I think that that's an underestimated concept because of where the determinants of health, where you live, where you go to school, what your zip code determines a lot about who you are and where you become. And it's going to become the collective we that's going to lead into this reconciliation and healing. I'm a product of the 60s, being one of those first African Americans in Bullock County that integrated the schools. And I reflect on the tragedy and the kinds of things that happen just because we tried to get an education, a good education. But once in the school, I was challenged about the power of the knowledge and the education and who controlled what it is that we were learning that was then propagated through the system. What's in the books? And we still see that argument going on right now. What are we going to put in the books? What are we going to allow in that then determine what our children get and not get? And so that goes back to that concept of being bound up, and how do you then get outside of that thought process to change things and change our lives? And that rests with the collective we. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that very much. I would argue that Greek tragedies are, especially plays by Sophocles, are about characters who all believe they're right, and someone's going to die because of it. And so I was listening to you talk, and I was thinking about how we get bound up, not just in language, not just in who gets to write the story and the story that's passed down and controlled, who controls the narrative, but also we're bound up in the roles that we've been assigned, the roles people assign to us. And something has to get us, and I think the Greeks were up to it. Other cultures do it other ways too. Certainly in ancient Africa, the griots were doing it, and certainly gospel music does it for me as I listen to it. It's as ancient a technology as Greek tragedy, it's more ancient probably. Get us to step back from the roles we're playing and acknowledge that we're just playing roles. And somewhere in there is the possibility of being unbound from these prescripted roles that are being placed upon us. I really appreciate you picking up the first speaker on Zoom's energy and moving it around this room. I'm going to go back to Zoom for one more second because, Bev, you've been waiting for some time. Bevan, we're going to go to you, and then we'll come to a few more people out here. I'm going to ask one last question after Bevan, and again, you can ignore it, but I want to go just one step deeper in the conversation, and I promise at the end there's one last song, so if you leave, you're missing out on that extra bit of healing that's going to happen tonight when you stay and enjoy it. And we won't go all night, I promise. But Bevan, over to you. Bevan.
Hi. Thank you for this Christmas present, to be in your community. I say hello world. I'm an engineering student in Louisville, Kentucky. I started that as COVID broke open, and there was a lot going on here in Kentucky, in Louisville. And I thank you for welcoming me into your community and your church to speak with you. I followed Brian through all of this for a while, and I'm very grateful that this is available to us. I have a disability, so it's very meaningful to me to be able to be present in this way, and I care very much about the art form being able to be presented, especially for those of us who cannot get out as easily as some others. So this has been a beautiful exploration for me to learn and grow, even as a single mom with my 2 kids homeschooling through the pandemic. So everything that everyone has spoken about, silence and voice of survivors, owning your ouch and your acknowledgement and pain, speaking truth to justice, compassion and openness, This is the healing that I have also needed personally to see from everyone else and also seek for my community. So I'm so grateful to you for welcoming us into this. This story touches in so many different ways. And I love how we've explored it through many different communities as well, whether it's the veteran communities. We're close to Fort Knox here. I'm a daughter of a colonel, and the communities that I've grown up in, I've been in Louisville all my life, public school kid here. So, and my kids are also in the schools here. So we are rebuilding, and I thank every one of you for everything you've said, the music, the inclusion, and especially the compassion, because the healing that you see and the resilience through all of this. I can't believe the way that the world has opened up because of COVID. It has been scary and terrible, but it has also been magical. And I thank you. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Bevan. Thank you for all those thoughts, and thank you for being with us tonight. I'm so touched that through technology we can connect in this way, and that the healing that's coming from this space can reach you, and that you can come back from you to us, and that disability need not keep you from being part of this community. In fact, now you're a part of it. And this is amazing that we've, out of necessity, created the capacity to do it. And thank you so much for following us and being part of this conversation. I've turned my back to the audience. I knew someone would have their hand up if I turned my back to you for long enough. Yeah, over here.
Thank you. My name is Faith Parks. I am what I call a friend of the coalition. Sister Pat and the rest of the team are fantastic human beings. And I think they are gifts to us on this planet. We have people that come and visit us for periods of time and then they transition, but oftentimes they leave us wisdom. Not action on this part, but wisdom. And one of the people that left us wisdom is the author, James Baldwin. If you read any of the literature of Toni Morrison or James Baldwin, they have given us the ancient, traditional wisdom of healing. All you have to do is read it. Greek tragedies as well, and plays. And James Baldwin left this one for us, quote, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." Thank you.
Thank you. I love how people either directly or indirectly answer the questions. It's always sort of fascinating, but it's always an answer. It's always coming back around to the fundamental question of what does intergenerational healing look like? And I hear you saying that in the same way that I heard Bevan saying that naming things and speaking them out loud is part of that process, and whatever gives us permission and license to say those words or vocabulary or syntax for saying is part of that process of healing as well. I'm going to ask my last question, and I see a hand back there. I'm going to ask the question. You can bring the mic over, and then whoever gets the mic can just ignore it, or you can assimilate it into whatever you're going to say. So I want to ask you something we've asked lots of other audiences before, as I trip over a monitor, and say, this is a question about something the blind prophet, the seer, Tiresias, played by Reverend Small tonight, says. He says to Creon, when they start to get into it, about the fact that Polynices' body is still laying unburied, and the blind prophet has seen into the future and seen the consequences of that action. He says, where is the power in re-killing the dead? And we've talked about this with lots of other audiences as we've toured the project across the country and the world. And so that's one of the parts of the question, where is the power in re-killing the dead? And I guess the second part we've been thinking about as we've been touring it, and in collaboration with our partners at On Being and the Center for Jubilee, Reconciliation, and Healing, is if we're either explicitly or implicitly, intentionally or unintentionally complicit in the re-killing of the dead, what else could we be doing with our vast capacity as human beings to collectively mourn not just our dead, but the dead of others who all have rights in the way that Sister Pat has modeled, but I know there are other ways we can be doing it too. And that's a question to Savannah, it's a question to the world, and it's a question you can ignore, whoever has the microphone in the back, but you can also engage with too. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of engaging that part of it, but the thought I had is to have this conversation, both sides need to show up to the conversation. And I just feel like white people need to show up to this conversation in a better way. You know, like, I find that the people who are showing up to the conversation, like the people, the white community that are showing up for the conversation, too often are hiding behind, and I'm guilty of this too, like I talk about my like Irish heritage and all this stuff, but like really I was born up like a white American. I was born in white culture. So like I have, in this conversation, like I have to own that piece, you know? And it's like, I think too often, like when white people show up to this conversation and even out there marching and whatever, hiding behind liberalism, hiding behind their religion, hiding behind their like, wherever their family's from, like we have to like, and it doesn't mean being ashamed, it just means like honestly showing up and representing that white culture voice, you know, in an honest way. You know, and I think that's just really important to the conversation. I think it's what's missing in this country, because when the white voice is there, they're trying so hard to maneuver and not be the guilty party that they're not just showing up as that voice in this discussion so we can have it honestly and like resolve some things, you know? And so, but that's a hard thing for white people. I've had to fight through. I got a black wife that keeps teaching me all the time, because I have to, like, it's really so like that white, growing up in white culture here, you just, like, the blindness to it is like, it's so insidious, it's wild. Like, it just keeps like, we just don't know, because we're in these waters that we swim in, and we just don't realize how privileged we are. It's just such a hard thing to, you know, to really realize. Like, and when Carrie Young was yelling out, like, the people of Thebes, like, that was just like, it's like there's this way everyone's hiding, you know, everyone's just like hiding, like, oh, no, it's not me, it's not me. And I think that's kind of what we have to start getting over to have this conversation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I'm going to go to Dr. Pat, because I can't deny Dr. Pat when she raises her hand, but I just want to acknowledge that, you know, we've had, I mean, one could argue that we're also hiding behind going to a play. You know, I mean, the coalition's been doing the work in the square. We were standing with Sister Pat in the square yesterday, and she's saying, I don't feel safe here anymore, alone by myself. And then I watched her walk out of the square, and my colleague Marjolaine said to me, should we be walking with her? And the answer, of course, is yes. But, you know, sometimes I think we humans, no matter where we come from, we need mediation of story. Because for all kinds of reasons, we can't let it all in, whether it's out of shame or guilt or fear or just habit. If I let it all in, what's around me on the way to work or back in New York City, I'm overwhelmed by the suffering around me. So I put up the defenses. I think the Greeks, but others, and definitely the music we heard, can penetrate that. And it's a tool we can use to get to the place where you are. There are other tools too. But I appreciate that the real thing that's happening in the room is that we're talking about what's happening here. And we're talking about what's happening now. We're using an ancient play to do it because we can't talk about it necessarily straight on, because we're human beings and we've developed these defenses. And I appreciate you acknowledging those defenses. Dr. Pat, I'm sorry to take up more time and stand in front of you. Over to you.
I have a question and a kind of call or charge as we leave. Because if you look around the room, regardless of color, gender, or all these other identity markers we have, we are, for the most part, as my grandmother would say, people who are benefited. And she would say, if you didn't have it, you were unbenefited. When I walked in today, there was a black man sitting on the side of the church, looking in clothes that it looks like he had worn for a long, long time, with a can or something in his hand, and being passed by as if he were a fixture. And he greeted me before I greeted him. And this is part of this Antigone message also. Who is not covered and who is seen as and dismissed as useless? Not even in the conversation. And as I speak, I struggle with it because my body is always responding to the trauma that has been generational, that I have worked on for years, to see that comfort comes to it. You know, all this stuff, mindfulness and breathing and all that. And I got here and found, as we keep talking about Sister Pat has legions behind her. There are all kinds of people. And so as we leave here and you're covered, what are you wrapped in that you can share the coverage so that their voices, we don't always want to have to speak for people. The people have what they have to say. We want to say, we speak for we. I don't know that I can speak, I can truth tell, but that's my truth telling. And so as we leave, and with the grace and the goodness and the generosity of all who gave this voice to us tonight in such a wonderful mixture of corporate life and the life of the community and what media does for us. Because I grew up knowing that if I had a private line phone, we had some power. And I wrestle with that, but I want to say thanks to all of you and all the people that are here and all the people that I have made family. That's part of that sense. Who can you belong to? And all of you now, look at the huge family we have. And I take my grandmotherly and all that and say, go in peace and love, and that both have to be worked to be acquired. Your work is there for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pat. Hold on to that for 1 second.
That's right.
So we're now running out of time. I know that I said we go all night, but that was misleading. Yes. I also, and I've been meaning to do this for some time now, I would like to acknowledge the chairman of Chatham County, who's here with us tonight. Let's have him stand and just acknowledge his presence here. Thank you so much. We're delighted that you've been with us so far. Reverend Tillman is here, who opened the doors of his church to us. Thank you so much, Reverend Tillman. Were it not for Reverend Tillman, we'd be out in the cold in the square trying to have this conversation, wrapping it up. But he was kind enough to open his doors to us. And I don't think he knew what it was, but he was having a board meeting downstairs, and he heard people stomping upstairs. And I heard he said, it sounds like people are going to church upstairs. Not a Greek tragedy in the way that I thought of it before, but thank you for taking a leap with us and opening your doors. You hear the music starting, just tinkling because, and Karen, I'm very sorry we're not going to get to you, but your presence, even in the background, has meant a lot to us, and I love the way how empathically you listened, and I'm so glad you were with us tonight. I have to go. We have to wrap things up, so we're not going to get to your comment, but please know that you're part of the chorus in the community, and even just watching, we're so grateful that you were here. If we have a benediction at the end of every Theater of War Productions event, and it's simply this: if you were touched or moved by anything that's been said in this experience we've had here, know this: you're not alone in this room. You're not alone across the country and the world. We've done thousands of performances like this and hundreds of this project. But most critically, you are not alone across time. And that's clearly the message also of Sister Pat's work and the work that so many people here in Savannah are trying to do, and it's so inspiring to hear about it. If there's a public health message to this work and these stories, it's you're not the only person who's ever felt this way. And if that lifted you out of a sense of isolation or a sense of being ashamed or a sense of disconnection, even for a minute, then our work will have been well served. But if it meant more to you and it connected you with people you didn't know you could be connected with, or opened doors for you and you feel open by what you heard tonight, and you leave this place with Dr. Pat's charge, and you find ways to connect the energy of this space with people who weren't here, and it leads to conversations and to direct actions like Reverend Small and Sister Pat, and to powerful connection, that our work will have exceeded our expectation. It's with that we're going to wrap things up. At the end of every Theater of War Productions event, we say the benediction as well. I often ask the question of people, why do you think Sophocles wrote this play? And someone stood up at one of our performances early on and said, I think Sophocles wrote the play to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. And we hope we did a little of both for everybody. Comfort that we can come together across very disparate connections, across space and time, across the world. Comfort that we can have this conversation by way of an ancient story and the ancient technology of this gospel music and this beautiful choral music that Phil has written. Afflicted by the reality that maybe many of us who came tonight are those citizens of Thebes, and there's Antigone calling out for us, though we're not listening and we can't hear her voice because it's been silenced and marginalized for far too long, or we've grown inured to it in some way. Afflicted by the reality that there might be people to our left and our right after we leave this space with the screams of Creon in their head, though we can't hear them. And it's with that sense of affliction that we leave you. With great gratitude to the Hearthland Foundation and to the Mellon Foundation and to the On Being Project, and Krista Tippett and her amazing crew, and to Lucas Johnson, who brought us down here and made this all happen. And great gratitude to Sister Pat and Sister Roz and the Coalition and the Center for bringing us down on the Jubilee and helping us celebrate Freedom Day in Savannah. And great gratitude to Mr. and now Dr. Phil Woodmore for his inspiration and his music. And immense gratitude to our panelists and their incredible comments tonight. Thank you so much. And again, great thanks to our actors for their performances tonight as well. You're incredible. So much gratitude to share. Thanks for tuning in. If you're out there in the world and you stuck with it, we're going to release a recording so everyone can appreciate it and experience it if you didn't get to experience the first part. And we'll keep trucking and we'll crawl up out of the 21st century, and pretty soon we'll be in your living room doing it as holograms. But until then, we're going to keep trying to make the technology work. I want to thank our technical team for struggling to make it work tonight, for everything they did. They worked so hard to get us out of the square and now into the, especially Brendan, Boyd, Matt Craig, our lighting designer, Kent Sprague, who did a beautiful job here in the church, Ange Lapolito, and the entire team at Robert Gold Media and The Office. Thank you all so much. And on the subject of gratitude, we like to end with a little gratitude for you, the audience, because your presence actually imbues this entire thing with meaning. So I'd like to invite my friend and colleague and inspiration, Marcel Davies Lashley, down to lead us in one final healing. Oh yes, number. And so you all don't get blasted off the stage, we'd like to offer you your seats back if you don't mind. Thank you so much. Over to you, Marcel.
Actually, can I say this? There's all this talk about healing for your sorrow, healing for your pain, healing for your spirit, shelter from the rain. Lord, send your healing, for this we know there is a balm in Gilead. There is a balm in Gilead, Savannah. There is a balm in Gilead, Sister Pat, to heal our soul. Healing for your soul. We stand with you. healing for your soul, healing. Can you touch somebody next to you? Can you touch a hand? Healing. Just make a contact with another person, yeah? We're no longer strangers, that feels like family. Healing. Oh, thank you. For our souls, yeah. This day begins the healing, yeah. Healing for the soul. Today we're better, yeah, yeah. For the soul. I see you, you see me, yeah. Healing for the soul. Healing for Savannah, healing for Ukraine. Healing, healing. Healing for your soul. Oh, the ancestors are here. Healing for